Season 5, the final season of Joe Goldberg's antics. And by antics, I mean murder stalking. And while this season isn't quite as ridiculous as the last season, that also just kind of makes it less interesting, and it's still incredibly flawed, largely because of their insistence on maintaining the 10-episode season. There is just not enough to fill these episodes. Unfortunately, this is just the type of show that just gets weaker the longer it runs. It either gets boring rehashing the same things over and over, or loses sight of the intention of the show and character before having to pull it all together in the end to make sense. And that's definitely what it feels like here. And I don't even want to completely put the blame on Netflix because the books went downhill too. As I mentioned in my last couple of videos, somewhere around the love storyline, the show completely veers off in a different direction from the books. But the last book that came out in this series was particularly not great because Joe's latest obsession was annoying as hell and it all just felt way too rehashed. It's basically so much the same that we already got, but with the love interest that's worse. But yeah, this season and that book are not remotely similar. I think there's a couple elements from the book that carry over, but it's really just Joe doing a lot of writing this season, and his romantic interest is doing a lot of writing, and in the book he meets his love interest in a creative writing group, but that's really the only similarity. Otherwise, I just find this season to be pretty poorly paced. They don't need 10 episodes to tell the story, and I don't love the direction that they chose to take most of this in. There's just a lot of corporate drama that gets pretty annoying, or I just don't care about it. I really don't care about his wife Kate scheming behind the scenes with other people. I don't care. But of course, there's gonna be a new girl to fuel his obsession that he's gonna stalk online, which is why I am so happy to present today's sponsor, Incogni, so you can help protect yourself online. Every day, your personal data is being sold without your knowledge by data brokers to people with very bad intentions. That means your email, phone number, family members, and more are just bouncing around the internet for anyone to buy and exploit. The best case scenario is that they'll just use this information to spam you, but at worst, that information could be getting to people with more targeted intentions towards you or your family. Add in AI to the mix, and some of your most vulnerable loved ones are being put at risk to be manipulated. Especially in the US, where people searching sites are popping up constantly to create detailed personal profiles for anyone to search. But Incogni will scan the web for the places that have your information and send requests on your behalf to have it removed. And because they pop up so rapidly, if you happen to notice your information somewhere you don't want it, you can send a custom request to Incogni to have it removed, and they'll take care of that back and forth. A few times a year, I'll notice an uptick in scam calls, which typically means that my information's gone to a new database. And every time I notice this happen, when I check my Incogni dashboard, they are already putting in the work on those removal requests and the calls stop. And I don't even have to do a thing because they are constantly searching on my behalf and handling any objections that come through. And it can be that easy for you too. Just make an account, give Incogni the okay to work on your behalf, and they'll keep you updated as they handle that back and forth stress-free. So check out Incogni.com/Amanda to get 60% off an annual plan and let Incogni take care of the headaches of data removal. Okay, so before we fully drop into this season, let's do a light little recap of season 4, which was absurd if you don't remember. There were golden showers in that season. After faking his death in the States, Joe moves to London to hunt down his season 3 obsession, Marianne, and becomes a professor under the name Jonathan Moore, and quickly finds himself obsessed with Kate, wife to fellow professor Malcolm Harding. This obsession gets Joe pulled into the lavish world of London's elite socialites who he hates. But then people in this group start dying one by someone they've been calling the Eat the Rich killer, and Joe's desperate to find them before they can get to Kate. That's right, a killer that isn't Joe, except psych, it was actually Joe all along. He was just doing it under a state of amnesia.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, dumb. He's just hallucinating this Reese guy that he thinks is the killer of the whole season, like Reese is real, but they haven't been talking. He dissociated so hard that he legitimately believed he let Marianne go when he had her locked in a cage the entire season. Wow, busy taking care of a hostage, killing a bunch of people, and still had time to get the girl? Now, if you think that total loss of reality is going to be built upon a little bit more in this season, no, it won't. I guess he's made peace with that side of himself, so it's just fine now. And that's part of what annoys me so much, the show making the choice to shift the killings as a byproduct of his obsessive need to possess women to it being the central issue and desire to kill, like he's some kind of reverse Dexter, which we will get to. The season ends with Joe killing the real Reese, thinking he killed Marianne, who was faking it, and gets away, and killing Kate's father because of his tyrannical control over her life. Then he tries to kill himself, gets saved, and Kate uses her vast resources to cover up most of what he did, at least the things she was aware that he did, and the two head back to New York where he can be Joe Goldberg again. I was very frustrated with so much at the end of that season. If Marianne had just called the cops earlier, Joe would be in jail and Nadine would be out of prison. Nadine is the student that he set up for the killings. And they kind of left it on this idea that Joe might just be Kate's personal hitman, that she's okay with doing that, which just didn't feel right for the character. Overall, it was pretty dumb, but fun enough, I guess. So that brings us to season 5. is 3 years later, Joe and Kate are a power couple. They even have Joe's son Henry back from that lovely couple he left them with, which is fucked. Kid needs so much therapy that he's absolutely not getting. Oh, shut up! And the initial conflict of the season is Kate struggling to maintain control of the Lockwood group after Joe got her father out of the way. She may be CEO, but there are a lot of people in her family that are unhappy with the way she's running the company, particularly her uncle, but we also have her sisters against her, American twins, Reagan, the dominant force of the two, and Maddie, the type to call Joe Boo-Boo.
Hi, Boo-Boo. What do you say I get us another drink, Boo-Boo?
Then there's the sibling that is actually on Kate's side, a mystery affair son named Teddy. We love mystery affair sons. And there's just way too much to focus on this side of the story. It really feels like it exists purely to fill the runtime. Like, yeah, a lot of it is going to relate back to how Joe solves problems, but it just gets annoying after a while. But the main thing here is that they have the proof that Kate falsified the report for her father, which led to a bunch of kids dying to have a pipeline built. So instead of trying to deal with that in the normal way, Joe just decides to kill the uncle.
This isn't you. No, I love that you think that, Bob.
At this point, it's just a creative writing exercise, but Kate is definitely concerned that he's doing that. And yeah, maybe not the smartest thing to be doing when you're actually killing people, but okay. This is step one in what I consider to be a form of retcon for Joe Goldberg. Made enthusiastic killer where killing is his specific urge instead of that deeper focus on it all coming down to his need to possess women and his obsessions that will result in murder to protect that in his mind. He thinks he's a hero, only doing it in situations where he's absolutely pushed to the limit. In the end, he does, of course, end up killing the uncle, and I guess that one you can kind of reason out to him protecting Kate and his family, but they really stress how much he enjoyed it. But don't worry, there can't be a season of You without a new love obsession, and that comes in the form of Bronte, a young woman sneaking into Joe's bookstore to borrow books or steal them to sell. She's quirky and spunky and well-read. He's gonna fucking love her. Even offers her a job in the shop. Oh no, girl, run! So those are our two main areas of focus. Joe trying to keep Bronte out of his obsession box, and trying to solve all Kate's problems by killing people. And he's not really having much luck in either of those things. Like, Kate really doesn't want him to keep killing people, and that inner stalker monologue is a run-in with Bronte.
That fire in her eyes. Wait. No.
Sadly, after committing murder, it seems that Reagan was the real attack dog they needed to worry about, and now she's extra up their ass because she does not buy that their uncle killed himself. So even though Kate's super against it, Joe's obviously gonna take things into his own hands. He refuses to be sidelined, which is just dumb, Joe. Kate may have been able to convince the wider public that her uncle killed himself, but when a second person hell-bent on getting Kate out of power goes missing, I feel like a lot more questions are gonna be asked, even if you are rich. But whatever, no matter what Kate says, Joe's gotta do something because of his urges. And it immediately goes to shit because it isn't Reagan he's knocking out during this weird sexcapade, it's Maddie. Yeah, Harrison husband's having an affair with the twin. So yeah, that was a big boo-boo for boo-boo. Certainly can't kill Maddie and Reagan. So he's basically gonna find a way to get Maddie out of here without getting himself in trouble so he can take care of Reagan, especially now that Reagan has started threatening Henry. Before Maddie even ends up in the cage though, Bronte accidentally gets herself locked inside it while snooping. And at this point it really does just seem like she's mostly interested in stealing rare books to sell them. That one of these books could pay off all her debt and put up her play.
So you're gonna steal from me to put up your play?
Ah, she's an artist, a writer. And while he is pissed as hell, he does actually end up letting her go, and even softens to her when she said she read his stories, you know, the murder fantasies, and she actually liked them, but it ends up leading to a little crash out that she's also into.
Maybe it's I did one wrong thing when I was a boy, and I got cast out like garbage, only to end up somehow a Lockwood, where nobody understands.
When people tell men to share their feelings, they don't mean like this. But yeah, he's literally trying to play the bad childhood card, which fair, he was abandoned, he was abused, but you're not the victim anymore, Joe, my God.
It's nice to meet the real you.
Oh, she's gonna die. Now at this point, I must mention that Joe and Kate as a couple are quite famous. Bronte here knows all about them to the point that she read the self-help book by the couple that Joe and Love had locked up in season 3 called Caging. It all ends up pinned on Love, which is why Joe ends up free, but obviously after Bronte sees the cage, it's not hard to make the connection and wonder like, are you that guy actually? Which he really easily explains away by saying that Love weaponized his trauma to hurt other people. Nice save! But this is a very interesting dynamic. For the first time in the show, someone knows more about him than he does about them. And I'm not sure he fully realizes the potential danger in that, to the point that he offers her the job again and lets her live in the upstairs apartment, all because it seemed like she appreciated his darkness. Damn, Joe's side pieces get it good.
I don't sleep with married men, okay?
No, this is nothing like that.
You sure about that?
She literally starts urging him on to recreate romantic tropes. But there's still the whole situation of having his sister locked in a cage and it being the wrong one. So he tries to poorly manipulate his way out of this, but Maddie is both too smart and too stupid for this, instantly calling out that he was trying to kill Reagan to protect Kate, and I say stupid because she says that while she's still in a cage. Once you're in the second location, you go along with anything that person says to get out. Oh yeah, of course, Joe, you were so jealous of me and my affair. I understand. But no!
You are not my boo-boo.
I am your boo-boo.
You are not.
I am.
And she's so scared of Reagan that she doesn't even want to get out of here because she knows Reagan will destroy her life for cheating with Harrison. Because yeah, Reagan's already figured this out when they found Harrison half naked in a closet and went live on Maddie's Instagram account to ruin her public image and give herself Maddie's voting powers to get rid of Kate. Rich people, man. But that gives Joe an idea. Kill Reagan and have Maddie pretend to be here for a period of time, then set it up to look like Reagan died in an accident when it's not so close to all this corporate drama. So he basically forces Maddie to have a psychotic break to become Reagan.
I should have eaten you in the womb when I had the chance.
Not that she was aware that Reagan dying was part of the endgame, but yeah. But we're gonna put a little pin on that right now and bop back over to Bronte, who we learn is actually Louise Flannery thanks to her ex-boyfriend Clay here, someone primed for Joe to get the urge to protect her from. Even though Joe's still very much married at this point and trying to keep Bronte in a box, Kate's really been pushing him away because she's essentially been treating him like a misbehaved house pet, concerned that he's not at all bothered by the murder he just committed.
Because I stopped feeling guilty about this part of myself. I need a purpose, Kate. In fact, I'm starting to think it's what makes me special.
Deluded to the point that he thinks that part of him is romantic and is hurt that Kate doesn't see it that way. Like, you kill one uncle and suddenly you're not appreciated. No time to dwell though, there is online stalking to be had with Bronte's real name. He manages to track down a lot of her online accounts, including her Goodreads where she's logged Beck's book. If you forget, Beck was Joe's season 1 love obsession who he killed and finished her manuscript and then sent it off to be anonymously published. And somehow this doesn't concern him as much as it maybe should, especially in combination with her also reading the book by the couple that love had caged. He's mostly just worried that she could be using him for financial gain and clout. But then when she's getting vulnerable with Joe, she ends up quoting Beck's book and he takes that chance to bring her up. And Bronte reveals that the real reason why she picked this bookstore in particular to break into was because she knew Beck had worked there and saw herself in Beck's work. She just wanted to feel closer to her. And I think that should have set off a lot more alarm bells in Joe, but no.
This is not suspicion. It's earnest.
He even admits to dating Beck. Joseph, no self-preservation bone in your body right now. Not that I want him covering up his crimes and getting away with everything, but my God, man, we've made it 5 seasons for you to give it up for a thief? All he can focus on is this flirtatious banter that he's still trying to convince himself isn't intentional.
I'm not your trope, I don't think I can handle an affair. Please don't make me feel like I'm the asshole here.
So with that specific affair mentioned out in the open, he goes for the old classic way of dealing with emotions he shouldn't have, whacking off to his writing fantasies. But we all know where this is leading. He can try and stay away from her all he wants to, but we know it's time to stop Joseph. But he won't, especially not with Kate treating him like a monster. It just might be worth blowing up his stable life for this girl who could accept his darkness. Because while they're sharing their writing with each other, which is just a terrible way to maintain personal boundaries, Bronte says,
"Sometimes I think witnessing an abuser's punishment is all I would need to heal."
And he is in on that. He wants to see that darkness and be accepted for his. Which I just find absurd because he had that with love. Why are we already retconning and love was way more interesting than Bronte? But even with that newfound interest in someone appreciating the real him, he has to continue on with his Reagan plan whether Kate wants it or not. Especially now that Reagan's dug deep enough into their time in London and realizes that Kate probably covered up Joe murdering someone. Very not good, and sadly, Reagan can actually fight back.
I always knew you were fucking psycho!
Of course, he still manages to come out on top, and then he actually sets it up so Maddie has to kill her. Because if she does it, she can't go to the cops about Joe, and if she refuses, he'll just kill them both. And she actually does it. I thought this was going to be a fake out for a minute, but no, Reagan actually just pushed her far enough to snap.
The one person in the whole world who was supposed to respect me, she respected me the least.
And immediately walks into the Reagan role to step down from the company and give her voting power to Maddie, who is her. Which actually works, but Kate's pretty positive that Joe's behind this change of heart. Maybe don't lurk in the corner, Joe! Which just pisses him off even more because she can't appreciate anything he's doing for her.
My marriage isn't in a stalemate. It's broken.
But Maddie's not in the clear. She is rightfully having a really hard time keeping up with the double persona, so Joe's gonna speed up his plans to officially get Reagan taken care of publicly with a bit of help.
Who? You don't have friends?
It's our good pal Will, the only person that Joe's actually been able to let out of the cage. But while that's happening, the real important stuff's happening, like Bronte finding his jack-off manifesto. And she's actually into it.
They're sinking slowly into the warm pond of...
Ugh. And that sexual tension only grows when Joe steps in to protect her from her ex.
Get the fuck out of here and stay away from her. I will not tell you twice.
And this seems to upset her, but only because she thinks he can't be doing such romantic things and writing such sensual works when he has a wife, before she storms off in her forbidden love, planning to leave town. But with Kate's lack of appreciation, he begs her to stay, and they kiss, so much for wanting to keep her in the no-fuck box. And they really try to romanticize the hell out of this affair. They have this whole dynamic about her secretly desiring to be possessed, and he's writing this serial killer story, which is actually a vampire story, where she points out that a lot of girls would actually be super into kissing a vampire's bloody face if he had just killed for her. And yes, that includes her, so they try to explore that darkness, and then she's just very abruptly not into it in the moment and takes off, and seems to have actually gone back to her ex. Clay here posting about love's coming back to him must be nice, which concerns Joe for a multitude of reasons, because Clay here seems like an abusive piece of shit, unlike him who's simply a murderous piece of shit. Speaking of murderous pieces of shit though, Kate now actually wants to know all the things she had the PI bury about Joe that all those years ago, so now she knows a lot of the stuff that he's connected to had nothing to do with self-preservation, and he's been a very busy boy over the years. And he is genuinely shocked that she's upset at the different actions he's taken when she's responsible for the deaths of children. Except, it's because she fudged an environmental report, not because she was running through them like Anakin.
I would have done anything for you, and you used it. You benefited from it, and then you rejected me for it.
So, that's their divorce spiraling up. At least it completely clears him up to track down Bronte. And he really won't have to do much. Like, they have him break into a house, but she just calls him.
I think I called to tell you not to worry about me.
And because she called from a diner, he could call back and knows exactly where she is. So apparently she left because she felt things were just getting too real with him, and she hated being a mistress. Which is when he gets to swoop in and say he's getting a divorce. Ignore the fact that Kate's the one that instigated it, but woo! Back to the sex! Which is about when Clay shows up. Starts getting aggressive with Bronte, so of course Joe steps in and kills him. Technically in self-defense, but there's a moment where he looks at Bronte and is like, I think she wants me to do it, and then he does it. Which is when the phones come in. Two girls bop in, live streaming the entire thing.
You fucking got him, Louise.
Yeah, she was trying to expose him as a serial killer the entire time, but seems like she got a little bit distracted in the Joe Goldberg method. Guess she wasn't exaggerating how much Beck meant to her. Now this is at least when the show felt it was getting interesting. We've been rambling on for 20 minutes now, and it's just been a bunch of boring corporate stuff, a shitty marriage, an annoying new obsession. Joe nabbing the wrong sister has been the best part of the season, but we're already halfway through it. So now maybe it can get a little bit more interesting, hopefully. Because we find out that Bronte, aka Louise, personally knew Beck. She was her TA, the only person who believed in her writing before she had to leave school to take care of her mom. And she specifically moved back to New York after hearing about Beck's death to try and catfish her ex-boyfriend, Joe Goldberg.
Can you please tell Joe that I have to go?
She's mine now, Joe. Bye-bye.
All because she noticed something weird in Beck's book. That there was a reference to the dollhouse, the one thing Beck told Bronte not to put in her writing.
The doll's house reference? Really? Ibsen's Nora was brave, able to look her husband in the eye.
With the manuscript being sent in anonymously after Beck's death, Bronte wondered if the real killer finished it and sent it in for publication. And if that's the case, is the killer this ex named Joe? With this question, she ends up invited to a group of people also looking for more answers, including Clayton, Dr. Nikki's son, aka the guy that Joe set up for Beck's death. It's Dos Stamos! So they come up with a plan to expose Joe as a killer, and apparently they waited 3 years to put the plan in action after he came back to New York? Or it just took them that long to get a foothold. I don't know, but that means she read his murder fantasies while she was stuck in a cage while catfishing to prove he was a murderer that might have locked someone in a cage and ended up not thinking he was a murderer? All because she thinks it stems from romance. It was always to protect the women he loves, except, in reality, the women he loved are all dead or missing. Also, I guess none of the details from the murder fantasy writings matched up with real situations, at least not the real situation she was aware that happened. Now, at first she's using the story to manipulate him, setting Clay up as the abusive ex so he can get the urge to save her from him. They wanted him to know that she'd read Beck's book to open up a conversation about her.
I wish I killed
Dr. Nikki. So maybe she would still be here.
Would her killer say something like that?
Yeah, if he had deluded himself into thinking he wasn't the problem, absolutely he would. He does think that Dr. Nikki is a huge contribution to what happened to Beck. He's deluded. Even when they show he has a violent streak in the bookstore, she just gets to see it as a normal reaction because Clay's been going overboard.
Or did we just prove he will defend a woman when some guy is hurting her?
And then she falls in love with him, so when it came down to Clayton's death, she tells the cop that Joe is defending her and himself.
Joe thought that Clayton was dangerous because that's what we set him up to believe.
So now we have an angry Joe who feels like he's been manipulated to his core values by the woman he thought he loved. And that shouldn't matter because he should be in jail for a while, but no, he gets bailed out pretty quickly by the Lockwood family lawyer, and Louise's statements pretty much save him from a worse fate. Now obviously Kate's getting him out of jail more to protect herself, but when Joe gets home, she's already sent Henry off to protect him from everything happening.
To you, he is just an extension of yourself. Are you actually trying to tell me that you won't find a reason to abandon him again?
Basically tricked Joe into signing a contract that created a temporary custody order. And he really starts to snap here. He definitely breaks some laws hunting down Henry just because he really needs to know that he didn't abandon him again, which is absolutely gonna hurt his chances of getting him back, but whatever. Even though there's a lot that Joe can do to hurt Kate, once she finds out that he made Maddie kill Reagan, she starts working on a plan to take him down, which we will put a pin in. We'll get back to that. Because now the show's gonna veer into another interesting area of exploration that I'm sure they won't go in hard enough: the court of public opinion. Everyone in the world with an internet connection can spew useless opinions on any number of real-life serious topics or crimes to levels that rival cult behavior. I've made an entire career spewing useless opinions. And Joe's just the latest topic of news outlets, gossip, rags, and social media around the world. Firmly putting him back in crash out mode that only gets worse once Bronte's friends start going live to talk about all the suspicious situations that Joe's found himself involved in over the years and inviting anyone with more information to weigh in.
Did my death sentence really just begin with the phrase, pop off?
It's interesting, you have people speaking out against him, like Love's mom, then the people like Sherry and Carrie maintaining that Love was the crazy one, then Paco thinking he's helping by saying that Joe is his protector, but mostly just making it seem like he's the reason Ron, the abusive boyfriend, went missing, Annika coming in to defend Peach, old students popping up.
He was always canceling class early. Do what? Kill people?
I was dissociating!
Okay, that one was really good. This is gonna be my new go-to. Amanda, why didn't you do that? I was dissociating. Sometimes it's like that though. But that means he has to try to flip the public opinion with a classic podcast appearance, specifically one that's designed to typically take down men that are like Joe. And the show's all very dramatic right from the beginning. You can tell by the comments no one's down to listen to him, and he almost instantly loses control even more because he starts talking about his time being locked in the cage and has a full-on breakdown.
Oh, fuck.
And people hate when you cry in situations like this because it's always going to be seen as pity farming. But then he gets a text from Louise. For what it's worth, I told the police the truth. And his deluded little world opens up all over again. Gives him the juice to wax poetically about his love for her, the betrayal he felt, how this incident all stemmed from a place of love. And you can literally see the opinion shifting in real time all through the comments, all on Twitter. The hashtag is bumpin'. They also got a chance to continue the Cardi B crossover when there are allegations, but he's a 10. They used her song in the last season, and then she had a little bit of a profile pick battle with Penn Badgley, so this is fun. And I hope people realize that kind of like online perception shifting is happening all the time. There are people who are literally paid millions of dollars to convince you of someone's guilt, of someone's innocence, of all sorts of things. But the wave flipping in the other direction pushes the hate campaign onto Bronte with tons of red pill shitlords jumping in to co-opt the situation for their own agendas. Either to say that women are all idiots that go for toxic assholes over the real good guys, or that they're all manipulators ruining the lives of good men, which we've absolutely seen happen in real life. So wow, Joe has a mighty big crop of targets now if he wants to protect Bronte. Lucky boy. Thankfully, he does somehow manage to track her down right as she's being Ted Bundy'd into the back of a van. Rookie mistake, Bronte. So behold, Dane, the latest cage member. Oh well, he has Louise handcuffed to a bed.
Maybe things will work out for us. After all.
Now, even after being handcuffed to a bed, she instantly just accepts his excuse of not wanting her to get up too fast on her twisted ankle. But his grand plan with her is that he wants her to decide Dane's fate.
A life with me means no one would ever hurt you again. Whatever you want me to do to him, I'll do.
Now that really should be her confirmation that he's a genuine killer, but oh well. This is all essentially a test for Joe to see if she's maybe the one that can truly accept him in all his darkness. Which I again do not understand because he had that with Love and was disgusted by it. Maybe we can say, oh no, he just didn't like that Love started murdering for him, but he's literally trying to get Louise to make the choice to kill a guy. And maybe they'll try to explain it away with like, oh no, this is the character growth he's had since then. But I don't know. I just need a little bit of consistency from the writers here. At least acknowledge it and have him mentally explain that shift. And if they did last season and I just forgot, let me know. Maybe maybe I even already commented on this in my last video, but it's been like 2 years now. And you can also give him the out that he's gonna be the one actually doing the killing, but it still feels like any of that darkness in love revolted him. Regardless, as intense as that is, Bronte is into it. But in the end, even though Dane's made it pretty clear that he plans to abduct more women in the future, she lets him go because she realized that this was all just a test for her. So they play a little game of honesty hour where Joe admits that he likes killing, that it's who he is, which I hate. Terrible choice for them to go down that road. They really needed to maintain the framing around the obsession, the delusion, genuinely believing that he's pushed to his limits every time he has to kill, even when he's killing the person he supposedly loves. He can never actively think that the act of murder is the thing he relishes and enjoys because that fundamentally would break the delusion he has in his head, and they're just going with it, but whatever. She doesn't actually think he likes to kill.
Convinced yourself that you need to do it in order to earn love.
But for her, it's enough to know that he would, and she's not gonna leave like everyone else. So sweet. Of course, he immediately kills Dane. She's so delusional that he can literally say he enjoys killing people and she'll still think that Kate's the real problem.
She was another person who made you prove your love through killing.
Girl, please. It's even worse though because at this point, Harrison realizes that Maddie's been pretending to be Reagan, and then Joe sets them both up to go down for the murder, and Bronte still thinks that Joe's not involved. Just like, wow, what a wacky rich family and all the murder going on around it. People just really like to die around you, Joe. And the ones you did kill, not your fault. Oh God, okay, let's check in with Kate, who's finally lining up more with the story that we care about. She goes to London to get Nadia out of prison, the girl they set up for murder last season, who's literally the one who has to let Kate know that Joe was the Eat the Rich killer. She cleaned up his image while he murdered all her friends. And their initial plan is to take all this information and get him in court, but once they realize how long that could take, they go for another option.
We have to fucking kill him.
Oh yeah, we're going all out here. So they head back to New York to manipulate him into the cage with Marianne, who up until this point Joe thought was dead.
You died.
I don't care what brought you here. I'm so glad you're alive.
And again, he is so deluded that he genuinely believed he fixed her life, even though he thought he killed her. And it's around here that Kate finally gets a chance to talk to Bronte.
You really think he didn't kill her?
And no, she doesn't. It's not until Bronte gets a chance to talk to Marianne that she might finally realize that she's let herself be manipulated. That she can't see the bad things Joe's done as bad because of what it would mean for her.
If you got fooled by this guy, you are not as smart as you thought you were.
So now we're going to try and tie into some of the deeper lessons at the finish line, then immediately drag it out for another episode. It can feel a little bit weird just to try to present this as if it's some kind of run-of-the-mill abusive relationship dynamic that someone needs to escape from. Obviously it is still that, but to the extreme, and I feel like we do kind of have to understand that it isn't going to just be people at this level of extreme that can cause us great amounts of harm. And honestly, a lot of what he does, he's maintained the full facade the entire time until it gets to the point that he's actively trying to kill someone. He's not getting these women because they're ignoring red flags, like maybe Bronte because she went into this situation thinking he was a killer and then ignored all the signs that he was a killer. Again, not blaming her, but because I do think it's interesting to explore that. But he's really not someone who ever drops that act until he's about ready to kill them. It is just important to remember that no matter what, the women that Joe thinks that he loves will do something to ruin it. He'll always find a problem. They will always break the illusion for him. So Joe breaks out of the cage while they're arguing about killing him because he's sewed an extra key into his arm. What the fuck, Joseph? But it doesn't get him far. Maddie's been released from prison and on a rampage, so she sets Mooney's on fire while Joe's locked in the basement with Kate, who's actually fine dying if it means that Joe gets taken out too.
You sacrificed yourself to kill me. Well done, you.
Shut up.
But then Bronte, who has no choice but to see Joe for the monster he actually is when his victim is standing in front of her not actually dead, and breaks in because she assumes Marianne is still inside. But this is where things start to get super fucking dumb. She reaches the basement and goes to save Kate when Joe starts rambling about self-defense.
She tried to kill me. I was defending myself.
And instead of just letting him burn and dragging Kate out, she helps him instead. Which is so weird because you can see in her face that she's so over it. The glass has shattered. So this all feels like an excuse for them to act out the scene that Joe wrote about with his vampire character having a bloody face and the love interest still wanting to kiss him. They even have Olivia Rodrigo's vampire playing in the background while he proposes. And yeah, it's not that she just decided to trust him again. Her inner monologue reveals that she really is just trying to get more answers out of him.
I'm the only person in the world that can stop you.
Bitch, he was about to burn up in a fire. Kate has more information on him than you do. I gotta do it. The head actually has to go on the head. Stop stop being stupid. I get and agree that him dying in this fire would be him getting off easy. But there was a better way to stretch things out than this. They really just needed to milk every single thing to get to the 10 episodes. They did not have the juice for this. Whenever she agrees to marry him so she can get her writing inspiration.
You're not the hero of our story. I am.
Like, I understand that she wants a play-by-play of what happened to Beck, but I feel it's pretty clear. And in her mind, when she gets those answers, then she'll make sure he gets what he deserves. You know, fuck the ex-wife who might burn up in a basement. Then, almost like a sign that she's doing the right thing, Beck's book is at the gas station they stopped at while fleeing the country, so that's how she'll get her answers. Right when they're getting intimate, she'll flip the switch.
Tell me how you killed Guinevere Beck.
And what she has him do first is actually pretty interesting. She makes him take out every line he added to her book.
I could spot your clumsy rewrites before I even met you.
Pointing out that he stole her voice in every sense of the word, that even in death he couldn't let it be authentic. Now, a lot of this episode felt like filler, you know, it's him working at getting new aliases for them with Will, you know, again, the one guy that let them out of the cage. They were going to be Ezra and Ella, the name of the protagonists in his book.
Ezra and Ella.
You're the best.
Is Joe writing Twilight fanfiction? Slay! At first I was just thinking Ella Fitzgerald, but is it actually like a Twilight play? Ezra and Ella, Edward and Bella? Oh my god! It's for me! Then in the middle of Bronte holding him at gunpoint, will get back through to him saying that they have Henry patched in for a conversation, but Henry now thinks that Joel's the real monster.
His mother said this would happen. Her dying words. He'll know what you are.
So once again, full breakdown mode, even his mini-me thinks he's a monster.
I try to love! Every time it falls apart!
This is deluded. You're not the fucking victim.
But to him, he is, so we get this full animalistic shift. All pretense is gone, no charm to be found. The reveal that it was Joe and not Dane that twisted her ankle so she'd have a harder time getting away from him. It's a little bit annoying that this ends up played as a daring escape from danger when she's the one who got herself into this situation. Not to victim blame, he's obviously still the one at fault here. But this could have all ended in the bookstore. But otherwise, yeah, this is always the way it was going to end.
No, it didn't have to! I made you special!
But this is really just showing the abusive nature of Joe in the most brutal way. There is no love here because there is never love here. You can't walk him back to being the charming, romantic Joe when you see him this way. And with the cops closing in, they try to tie it all back to his nature of abuse and possessing women.
The fantasy of a man like you is how we cope with the reality of a man like you.
You build up all their best characteristics. You fall into the trap of being made to feel special. You don't let yourself see the danger because you want so badly for it all to be real. Before he dives at her to get shot to avoid a life in prison, and she shoots him in the dick.
You shot me in the dick! Ah!
Even Cardi B gets in on that one. He was a 10, now he's a 2. Inches. Hashtag Joe Goldberg. And we get a nice little bow wrap on the victims. Kate actually survives the fire and uses the scars as a reminder of the things she's done. She completely steps down from the company and focuses on selling Marianne's art. Louise rewrites Beck's book without Joe's contributions, the best that can be done when Beck will never get to express herself again. But of course, we have to end on the man himself. Miserable in prison, completely alone, still thinking he's not the sole person to blame for all that's happened, especially when he gets fan mail like this.
Maybe we have a problem as a society. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you.
A little meta mirror pointed back at the audience, who many still to now would romanticize Joe and genuinely see what he's doing as romantic. The behaviors people think they'd enjoy in theory, but maybe not so much in practice. How people can eat up the most depraved realities and romanticize so much of it, and like you start rooting for some of these people. That this show ran for 5 seasons with people obsessed with watching Joe's every movement, forgetting all the people he's worked through from season to season. But it also serves as a reminder that Joe and the people like him will always deflect. He'll always put the blame on others, and when individuals can't be blamed, it's society. I know it was dumb that he got out of the fire, but it's absolutely better that he'll have to spend his life dickless in prison because he deserves the punishment that only solitude can give him. And I like that they took the opportunity to show him go all out, to really show how far he's not only willing but happy to go when things don't work his way, how genuinely abusive he is, how psychotic he is, how terrible he is when the women don't play into his fantasy. And I think it's a thing that people need to remember when they start romanticizing characters and people like this. But yeah, that's pretty much you, season season 5, it was not the most satisfying in a lot of ways. The first half of the season was pretty bland, but I think they closed it out in the right way. I probably would have gone through a different series of events so you didn't have this whole like bait and switch in the fire that pretty much made Louise's actions seem completely nonsensical and stupid. You don't need to make some of these characters more dumb than they actually are, but whatever. Even while thinking that Bronte wasn't the best love interest, it was interesting to see someone with more information about him still falling for his love-bombing charm. Other than that, I thought they started scratching the surface at like the very interesting aspect of how people engage with crimes and allegations online, how easy it is to fall into initial impressions, black and white thinking across multiple situations. I actually wish they had gone harder on that and maybe shown some of the like trial stuff going on, but I did enjoy the inclusion. Again, trial stuff would have been cool in general, just like forcing him to see all the things he did, not just tell us that it was humiliating for him. I do love that Penn Badgley really made it a point to insist that he come across as very irredeemable in this season if somehow the first season wasn't enough for people, which I guess they clearly realized it wasn't. But I do really think they could have gone further. Like, we need another box with a used tampon in it. We need to remind us all that he's a loser. I will say that a lot of this season did try to refocus on the fact that he's a huge loser, but not enough. Again, I really hate that they went so hard on this idea that he just enjoyed killing and that became the new focus of this season, as if maybe that was the thing that would make him irredeemable. But honestly, I think that that would be easier to understand than like the actual horrors he inflicts upon women before he even kills them. He seems less redeemable the more hatefully delusional he stays. I still maintain that the first season of the show is really good and the second one is not that bad. I think they add some things that just add a humanity to Joe that shouldn't have been there, because he is supposed to be this just kind of like archetype of a character that is singularly focused, and anytime you start getting away from that, it gets a little bit messier. I'd be fine if they did that, if it then played in more to him trying to maintain that image, that built up image of himself, but they don't do that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this season. What do you think of the show as a whole? Did you really like this season? I'm just kind of happy that they closed it off semi-well. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. All my other social medias are listed down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later.